Body Punch Podcast. My name is Naz. We just witnessed greatness. It is Sunday, September 27th at the amazing time, 1:36 a.m. And I just wanted to talk about this amazing fight, this masterclass. And I wanted to talk to you guys about this with one of the most knowledgeable people I know when it comes to mixed martial arts. I always go back and forth with him, and he gives amazing, great points about this sport. He knows the ins and outs. He knows all the drama that's going on. And he's like I said, one of the most knowledgeable people when it comes to this sport. I would like to introduce Maz. Maz, if you would like to introduce yourself.
Hey guys, my name is Maz. I'm a big fight fan, and it's nice to join you at 1:35 a.m.
Yeah, it's an amazing time. We just witnessed something great. I got text messages all night. We were talking about the fights. People were bringing it up. Some of the social media content, which is a great gauge for if a card has done well, was reaching astronomical levels. At some point, the YouTube weigh-ins, just to watch two people stare at each other, had garnered more views than the Khabib and Conor McGregor fights and the wins. That shows you what kind of special fighter we have when it comes to Adesanya. Maz, do you want to bring up how special this guy is? What do you think?
First of all, I just want to say the significance of the main event. It's held to a very high standard, right? This was the second time in UFC history where we had two men come together in a title fight, both undefeated champion, undefeated challenger, right? I just want to say props out to the UFC organization for, holding this event. As a fan, as a fight fan, I couldn't have asked for anything more. Very special, both main events. The entire card, both Israel, Costa, Dominic, Blachowicz, they both exceeded my expectations, both fights.
Yeah, and for this magnitude of a card to be held on Fight Island is something amazing on its own. We've seen the UFC, like I've said in countless podcasts now, and I know, Maz, you agree with this as well. The fact that the UFC is one of the only sports to do something like this at this magnitude. Now, I know we got the NBA bubble, we got the NHL going on, and we got football coming back. And we got baseball doing their thing. But the way that the UFC has brought this level of production to a country outside of the United States in a global pandemic shows you how special this sport is. And something like this is only due to the fact of heads of promotions like Dana White and Scott Coker. We've seen both of these organizations exceed expectations. And Maz, would you say that the UFC and Bellator and all these organizations, would you say they've skipped a beat when it comes to promotion and moving to other countries?
Oh yeah, for sure. They obviously have a lead. There's fight fans all around the world. That's the one thing, with different sports. Usually there's a lot of specific people that like basketball, hockey, football. But, fighting's everywhere. Fighting's in our DNA. It's in our blood. Anywhere you go, you can always find fight fans.
Totally. And that's a great point that you bring up. That's a point that I believe in so much. I was on Twitter tweeting, looking at all the great tweets, seeing all the great journalists talk, and seeing the amount of people that were interested in this card was amazing. the card itself was headlined by two people who practically hated each other. You know, some people say it might be a fix or whatnot, but the competitive nature that these guys showed, the competitive nature makes them hate each other. And that's what we saw here. Adesanya using his amazing footwork, using his amazing striking background that he showed. And for Eugene from City Kickboxing to come up with a game plan of hitting the legs constantly, attacking them constantly, that was something spectacular. The game planning that I saw there was in the first round, it was attack those legs, the lead leg kick. And then in the second round, it was just about confusing Costa. Now, Maz, how would you say that the game plan was executed? What did you think of it? I thought it was something amazing.
I think it was honestly perfect, right? At the beginning, we both saw that Adesanya and Costa, they put on the pressure really quickly, right? The second the fight started, they were on each other. And, you know, like you said, Adesanya got those early leg kicks in, which we clearly saw. Each leg kick, we were easily able to see the imprints of where they exactly landed, right? Each time you could see right by the knee, right by the calf, you could see an imprint. And he started, you know, Adesanya clearly started picking Costa apart. And he was kind of walking him down.
Totally. And before we get too deep into the amazing card or the amazing main event and co-main event that we saw, I just wanted to go over some of the early prelim and prelim fights and some of the other fights that were on the main card. Now, we saw John in the early prelim. He's 39 years old. He's about to turn 40. He showed us an amazing submission. It was a great submission. It takes a lot of power to execute something like that. To crank the neck in the way that he did is shows you the amount of power that he possesses in his upper body. Now, here's the thing. Like I said, he's in his advanced age. There are some matchups that we can put him against, but this is someone who won tough in about 2018, I believe. And he hasn't fought since then. This is one of his first fights coming back. I would say that for him, he's got to get the pedal to the metal. He's got a good mindset. When talking to John Anik, he said that he's ready to fight really soon. He said, I'll fight someone today. I'll fight someone again. He has that mentality, which is great for him. But when it comes to the age, it's going to be something difficult for him. He's going to have to hit the pedal to the metal, like I said, get more fights under his belt. It was a great showcase for him. It was a great win via submission, like I said. And Maz, what would you say for a heavyweight in their late 40s? Now, we've seen other heavyweights compete for championships in their 40s. We've seen that the heavyweight division is a division where fighters can last a lot longer. That might be due to a bunch of different factors. But what would you say to a fighter in his advanced age?
You know, not just from a heavyweight standpoint, in this fight game in the UFC and MMA, you don't really see fighters come back from a long layoff like that. That's years, right? You don't really see that. And, you know, you see a lot of doubters talk about, you know, the age factor and how, you know, just the physicality, it's just not the same, right? As age, you know, there's a lot of differences. And I feel like, you know what, he's, like you said, he's off to a strong start. And if he continues, he can get a lot further.
Totally. Yeah, I totally agree with you. And I think you agree to my sentiment when it comes to just get more fights under your belt. Now, the next fight that I wanted to bring up was And going through the list of these fights, by the way, incredible to see. A lot of people were sleeping on a lot of these fights. They weren't mentioning these fights. They were saying that all these fights are boring. This is a very top heavy card, but I enjoyed it from the bottom to the top, very much so. There was a couple of fights that might have been a little bit boring, but when it comes to the stuff that I saw, technical showcasing from a lot of people, obviously City Kickboxing was all over this thing, and you could see the technique in some of the fights, even the power that was displayed, all the stuff from top to bottom. I think it was a great card overall. Now, the next fight that I wanted to talk about was the William Knight fight, and he beat Camur. He's from Cleveland, Ohio, Akron to be specific. He fights with Stipe Miocic, their teammates. William Knight, surprisingly, for his body type, he moves like a panther. It's crazy. This guy moves in an amazing way. Some of the groundwork that we saw displayed from him was, I would say, the technique wasn't there as much as the power. This guy was just powering out of the moves on the ground. He was just getting out of different situations. And it's weird to think that a person his size and with his muscle was able to go all 3 rounds like the way he did and really put it on. Maz, what would you say about, like I said, there's a there's a certain perception that people have with fighters like Tyron Woodley and William Knight, that if you have a lot of muscle on you, then you're going to gas out. People said that about Paulo Costa. Obviously, there was a different thing that happened to him, but they say that people with a lot of muscle tend to gas out. What would you say about that?
I agree with you. Obviously, like you said, Costa's a different story for tonight. But going back to we got Yoel, we got Tyrone, we got William, we got all these fighters that are coming with different physicalities, right? They're much bigger. And I feel like the UFC is kind of changing this perception, right? Usually it's, in order to have a big gas tank that can run you a bunch of rounds, you got to be a little skinnier, leaner, right? But these guys are just big, chunky guys. And like you said, it's Williams just changing my perspective personally. He showed good defense on the ground, and it was awesome to see.
Yeah, I think fighters like this are really showing younger fighters how they can use their body type. If you have a certain body type, like if you're big and strong, maybe you don't go all 5 rounds and pepper people like the Diazes. They are cardio kings. Maybe you do something like Tyron Woodley, who's a great example of someone that packs a lot of power and then uses it sporadically throughout the fight. You'll see him, like Yoel Romero, to be honest with you, kind of wait, and then just spring on you, hitting you with like flying knees and stuff like that. William Knight, great fight to see. This was a super quick turnaround for him, I believe. So that's always fun. And Dana White loves that kind of stuff. And so the next fight was the Shane Young and Kelvin fight. Now, here's the thing. Even though Shane Young was an underdog, since he is with City Kickboxing, I think a lot of people thought that he would win this fight. And it was crazy to see. I even tweeted it. A UFC Canada said that this was such an amazing head kick. And I tweeted that that's a head kick that you can hear from PEI to Vancouver. It was so loud, without any fans, without anybody. And man, the way that he hit him was spectacular. This is the same person that did, I'm not sure what it was, but I think it was something to the fact of the All Black rugby team doing some sort of dance or whatever it was, and didn't shake Dana White's hand, and that went viral. This is that same person in Shane Young. And like I said, in the City Kickboxing camp. And maybe it was just he was really confident. He was coming into the fight. He looked good. But just that head kick alone, man. Maz, what do you think about having no crowds in there? Man, you can really hear all the punches in every single one of these fights that I watched, mixed with the bruising that we saw in a couple of the fights with the sound. Isn't the sound like sometimes you gotta see if you're watching baseball because it sounds like someone's hitting
Oh,
someone with a
oh,
baseball bat.
it's absolutely mind-boggling. You know, you can actually see the referees. You can hear what they're saying to each one of the fighters. You can hear the cornermen. You can hear exactly what they're saying, right? Even with the NBA, right? I was watching a game earlier today, and you can't clearly hear everything the players are saying, but you can hear a little bit, right? And it's just a weird transition going from having fans to no fans. It's just kind of weird, and you could tell there's something different.
Yeah, and I think for fight fans like us, it's a great treat because we're hearing the corner, we're hearing every single kick, we're hearing referees even bring up um, certain things, and they're talking about the certain stuff. And I think it's great for us in terms of fight fans. Just man, just to hear everything, it's crazy. Now, the
Yeah,
next fight that I want
it's
to
very
talk.
raw and it's natural.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Like you said, raw and very natural. It's like you're seeing a fight on the street, and it's something spectacular. And you know what, Matt? I don't know if you agree with me, but our sport is a sport that is in our blood, like you were saying at the beginning of the podcast. This sport is something that we just know in our hearts, and this is the only sport that would be so brutal like this. Now, I know boxing is like this, where you can hear all the punches and whatnot, but our sport is something different. Would you agree?
I fully agree. I fully agree. Not just fighting, but training to fight. The training that goes in to become a fighter. That's all part of us. You go cardio. You got all your conditioning. You got different avenues in MMA. Different avenues where there's different types of fighting that you have to train specifically for, and that's where the training comes in.
Yeah, and man, I'm, these kind of fights really bring up the enthusiasm level. You'll see after this kind of card, a bunch of people will be into fighting. Man, if all the gyms are open right now, all the jiu-jitsu gyms and all that kind of stuff, they're all packed after a card like this. There's some jiu-jitsu gyms after a Conor McGregor fight, even though he's not known for his jiu-jitsu, they'll just be packed with people coming in, and they're all saying the same thing, that I watched UFC last night, really interesting. I want to try it out. Now, just to move on to the next fight, this is a really interesting fight to me, was the Diego Sanchez Jake Matthews fight. Now, in my pre-fight thoughts, I man, this was going to be a tough challenge for Diego Sanchez. Now, a lot of people on Twitter and online, and even the commentators, I don't think they brought this up because they don't want to hurt Diego Sanchez's feelings. But in my opinion, Diego Sanchez was a beat off. What I mean by that is, imagine like a metronome. It's tick, 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 tick. And Jake Matthews was at one level, and Diego Sanchez was just reacting a little bit slower. It seemed like his internet speed was a little bit slower than Jake Matthews. He was just a beat off. At one sequence, it was in the first round. Jake Matthews was backing up, and Diego Sanchez, even with a foot of space, he tried hitting him with a side kick with full force and tried hitting him with the left hook with full force. And Jake Matthews was just really far away from him. Now, Diego Sanchez has been saying that he wants 3 more fights. He's brought up Conor McGregor. Conor McGregor is surprisingly tweeting back saying, I'll be willing to fight you. I was planning on fighting Diego Sanchez in my coming back fights. He was planning to have a season, Conor McGregor, and one of those fights was going to be Diego Sanchez. That's what he was saying. Now, Mads, what would you say to a fighter like Diego Sanchez? The thing about him is that he's not competitive, and then all of a sudden he just comes and becomes competitive. He's able to beat fighters like Mickey Gall, but he loses to fighters like Jake Matthews. What would you say to a fighter like this?
One thing I want to talk about over here is, like you said, Jake Matthews grew up watching Diego Sanchez, right? And that's the same thing with Anderson Silva versus Adesanya, right? Exact same thing you see where, they're watching each other as a kid, and now one of them holds a win over the other. And that just shows, the spectrum of life. Anderson Silva, amazing. No one can deny that. Anderson Silva was amazing. Diego Sanchez, amazing, still amazing. But you can just see, over time, certain things just get stripped away from you, right? And you can't control that. But I still believe, Sanchez, if he wants to fight, I feel like he could still put up a couple more fights, fun fights, and yeah.
Yeah, I don't think anybody wants to see that Conor McGregor fight. Do you want to see that?
You know what? I want to see, if Conor's going to fight, that's the first question. If he's actually going to fight, I want to see him fight some other people. I don't think Sanchez right now.
Yeah, I think Sanchez is I don't know. I think it's weird. Who knows with him, because of the unorthodox training style that he has. His coach was getting into fights with, different UFC legends and all this kind of stuff. And he has a weird training style. And who knows if it's Diego Sanchez himself or he's just not training correctly. But I don't want to see that Conor McGregor fight. Conor McGregor has alluded that he will be fighting Manny Pacquiao before 2021 or at the beginning of 2021. They're on the same sports agency. They talked to Ariel Helwani 2 days ago, and they confirmed that they're in talks with Manny Pacquiao and that Conor McGregor is willing to fight him. The main question that I had when it came to Conor McGregor, it was, is the UFC interested in making that fight, because he still is under contract with the UFC, and the only way they could make that kind of fight is like what they did with the Floyd Mayweather fight, and was to co-promote and whatnot. So I don't see the Diego Sanchez Conor McGregor fight. I think that's kind of out of there. But I do agree with you. I'm in this camp, and I think this is the camp that not many people want to take this stance. But I believe people got to fight. If they want to fight, you should let them fight. Now, it's their decision, and it's the decision of the promotion that they're with if they're going to let a person like this fight. Now, I think Diego Sanchez, if he wants to fight, go ahead. If the UFC wants to allow it, go ahead. I think you got to do what you got to do, and it's your body, and you can do whatever you want with it. Okay, so next, Brad Riddell, City Kickboxing again, man. I keep on repeating myself, but there's a lot of City Kickboxing guys on here. As you guys well know, if you're listening to this podcast, I assume that you're a hardcore fan. Brad Riddell winning by decision. What I really wanted to focus on here, Maz, was the fact that Brad Riddell, in my opinion, was tied with Alex. And I don't know what he found, but in the third round, he really put it on Alex. Now, in this fight, we saw a weird fake eye poke. And what happened with this was Brad Riddell was punching. I believe he caught Alex with a hook. He caught him with the two index and middle finger knuckles. And Alex believed that it was an eye poke. And so he stopped. He said, stop. And the referee actually stopped it. And then when we saw the replay, we saw that it was just a punch. The announcers John Anik was saying that it might be a broken orbital. But it was such a weird sequence. But Maz, what do you think about Brad Riddell finding that extra gear and putting it on Alex?
You know, we saw the fight go back to the ground a lot of times, and you saw De Silva. He was able to drag Riddell to the ground a bunch of times, but it was only for a few seconds. As you know, Riddell, he's quick on his feet and he explodes back up, and he's very complimentary, right? He's got a lot to him. He's got a nice edge.
Yeah, I think that fight was really interesting back and forth. And what Brad Riddell showed when it comes to his heart is crazy. Now, the next fight, I'm super excited to talk about this. I'm a big Hakeem fan, man. And not just because he's a Canadian, but the fact is that he is down to fight. He's down to scrap. Now, in the middle of the fight, wasn't it crazy when he was pointing to the ground like Max Holloway and saying, "Come on, let's fight, let's fight"? Wasn't that nuts?
That was awesome. That exactly reminded me of Max Holloway. That's exactly what I was thinking of. I was like, we need to see Max back. It's been a while.
Yeah, it reminded me of getting Max back into the. Yeah, it was crazy. And so, I mean, a lot of people thought that Zubera was going to win. They saw Khabib in his corner maybe and thought that Khabib could help him out. But Hakeem really put it on him. You know what really made me think or really made me believe that Hakeem is something special? Yes, he's got that striking ability. He's got the ability with his Muay Thai background and with his striking background. And he's just mean on top of that. That goes with his nickname. But the fact is that the balance that he showed when Tuktanov was trying to take him down, that was incredible. The main thing is a lot of technique, but the balance was something special. And he took away one of his main weapons, and they were going back and forth, back and forth. Man, what do you think of that fight?
First of all, seeing Khabib there, that was a very big deal, right? I had a lot of friends messaging me like, Khabib's there. If Khabib's cornering Zuberi, it's that's a very big deal. But like you said, Hakeem, he's got a different edge to him. He's down to fight. He's a dirty fighter. In the middle of the fight, he's pointing to the ground. He's very versatile. He's got his Muay Thai background, and I was surprised. A lot of those kicks that he came out with, they got Zuberi, and you could tell that it kind of slowed him down. It kind of confused him.
Yeah, and you know what? Quietly, Hakeem is on the longest win streak in the featherweight division. He's beaten some great fighters, and it's amazing because he is, and this is more to the fact, like, this was an amazing fight. We saw amazing stuff. Like, I'm just looking at the stats right now. In terms of the total strikes, we got Hakeem with 70 strikes and Zverev with 40, and then significant strikes in the way of Hakeem with 69 and 35 for the other side. I mean, this fight was an amazing fight, especially with someone Tuktanov with there's a lot on his back. And what I mean by that, it, like you said, the Khabib thing, all that kind of stuff, it really puts a lot of pressure. And Hakeem was able to take that pressure. He was able to fight his fight and put it on. But what I really wanted to talk about was the fact that this guy has a country on his back. He's got Canada on his back. Now, I know he's half Jamaican, but the Canadian market, and I've thought this, and we've talked about this, Maz, is that the fact is the Canadian market is so untapped at the moment. We got some great fighters in the UFC and in Bellator that are representing Canada. But Hakeem is really special because I think that if he keeps on winning like this, he's able to unlock one of the meccas of the sport when it comes to Canada. Canada is massive. Maz, when GSP was fighting, wasn't that something spectacular?
Honestly, that the atmosphere, whenever Khabib would be fighting, the atmosphere would be crazier. Everyone would be coming together, not even just fight fans, fight fans included, but we had other fans, just people hearing that, a Canadian is fighting. That's how supportive Canadians are. They see a Canadian, regardless of the sport, they come, they support, and it's just the atmosphere, the camaraderie. It's awesome to see, and the MMA. The MMA is the fastest growing sport, but especially in Canada, it's growing very quickly. You could see, the younger generation, they're picking onto it quickly. You on social media, you see people that you never thought would be fight fans. They're posting, they're getting hyped up, they're talking to their friends, having these debates here and there. It's awesome to see, and it's an amazing atmosphere.
Yeah, I really think that if Hakeem is able to unlock the Canadian market, he'll be a superstar. So let's move on. So there was a couple other fights, great fights. Brandon Rovell, I don't want to skip over that, but that was a great fight. I mean, Maz, I don't know if you would agree, but the way that this guy, it was a back and forth fight, I think. Brendan was able to connect with the reach, and France was kind of staggered, I believe, at the moment, and didn't know how to deal with the reach, and actually was about to take down Brendan. But Brendan was able to lock in that submission. Wasn't that crazy with the way that he was able to get that submission?
It honestly shows how technical Brendan is, and I feel like we're going to see him go very, very far. This was just a little bit of a snippet, second round. What was it? It was like a couple of seconds. It was like 40 seconds in the second round, right?
Yeah,
we're
it
going to see
was.
him go far.
Yeah, the second round was about to end, and I mean, this guy's going to be a real problem for anybody in the flyweight division. He's a major problem, and he's fighting with a great team out in Denver. He's from Denver, I believe, and that acclimation is really going to help him when it comes to the upcoming fights. He's going to be a real problem. Okay, so let's get to the co-main event, and we were talking about this off air, but wasn't that crazy? People thought that Dominic Reyes was going to smoke John. And let me know your thoughts, because you had some great points about this.
Here's the thing. There's a lot that went into this co-main event. First of all, I'm a big fan of Reyes. Leading up to this entire fight, the media was, they were talking to Reyes and they were questioning him about the fact that, he has a prerequisite from fighting John Jones, right? When you fight John Jones and when you almost came to a finish, you have a prerequisite. And, the media was talking about how he has that edge and Jan doesn't have that edge. And Blachowicz came out and he's like, listen, yeah, Dominic may have almost finished Jones, but listen, I didn't fight Jones at the end of the day, right? If I fought Jones, it would be a different story. And you know what? I kind of believe that now because what he showed was honestly, it was amazing. It was amazing. It was very surprising. It was very nice to see, and it was very technical.
Man, and another thing that we were talking about before the podcast was the leg or the kicks to the body. Man, the imprint that was leaving, that was crazy. Even after the first one, do you remember this? After the first one that Jean threw, I was like, oh my God, look, his body is red already.
I agree. It was literally like Dominic had road rash on the side of his rib, right? Every kick left an imprint, a massive imprint, and it kept on getting worse, red and red and red. And I'm sure, that's a factor and something that slowed him down because, Dominic started looking a little different, right? Dominic usually does start slow. He reads out his fighters. He takes it easy. He watches them. He throws his feints and he sees how they react. But I saw it at the beginning, but as the kicks continued to come on, I definitely saw Reyes slowing down a little bit. He didn't show it, but he did slow down.
You know what I think also happened was that the hype got to Dominic Reyes. Dominic Reyes was told from the moment that he lost the John Jones fight that he actually won it. So now he's a fighter that believes that he beat the greatest of all time. Not to say that Dominic Reyes was going with a lot of air in his head and, he was going crazy. But when John threw that first powerful body kick and when his nose started to get affected, I think the gears in his head started going. They started going, oh my God, I'm about to lose this fight to this guy that everybody thought I was going to smoke. Everybody thought that the modern fighting style that Dominic Reyes has would be able to beat John Blachowicz. What did you think about the mentality that Dominic Reyes was going in with?
Like you said, I fully agree with what you said. Usually as fighters, it's very hard to ground yourself. And I feel like that's the problem that Reyes ran into. Because look, not only did Reyes come close to beating Jones, but listen, he has about 9 first-round finishes. 9, right? That's a very big deal. His striking's amazing. He's a very high-caliber fighter. He's very calculated with everything he does. But like you said, I feel like the hype got to him, and he just didn't ground himself.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said. And man, Blachowicz is going to be a problem to beat. He's so fundamentally sound. And the broadcasters brought this up, and I thought it was a really great point. And it was the fact that when Blachowicz throws something, it doesn't look like it's a hard punch or a hard kick, but it's so technically sound that it affects the opponent so well. Wasn't that crazy?
Oh yeah, you can definitely see. You don't look at him like you said, and you can't really tell that his punches have that much power. But like you said, his technique and the way he comes out with his strikes, they're just extremely powerful. And you could tell when Dom gets hit with them. When he was getting hit, you were able to tell that kind of affected him. Dom was good at playing a poker face, but you can definitely tell it was slowing down.
And Blachowicz is so underrated. Check this out. And you already know this, but Luke Rockhold, that KO was spectacular. And then to beat Jacare Souza. And then to beat Corey Anderson. Corey Anderson was, and still is, a spectacular fighter. But I think a lot of people forgot the fact that Blachowicz was on a streak like this. What do you think? Do you think that this guy is going to be able to be beaten? And what do you think about the John Jones call out?
First of all, Blachowicz is very brutal, right? Going back to what you said about the Luke Rockhold KO, whenever I see Blachowicz, that's the first thing I think of. Even during the fight, I was just thinking about the Luke Rockhold KO. It was absolutely brutal the way he chose his movements during that fight. Even this fight, he's very calculated as well, and he just pushes forward. He marches forward, and he walks right through whoever's in front of him. And yeah, the John Jones call, that was funny because the UFC, they started, they have that little sub edit at the bottom where they have the tweets, right, where you could see the tweets. And the second he called out Jones' tweet popped up. And it was like a thumbs up. I forgot exactly what it was, but we saw it there, and we know that Jones saw that. Now the question is Jones, is he going to come back down? What are his plans? Is he even actually going heavyweight, or what's happening? Right?
Yeah, and I think this is a great move for John Jones. John Jones, who keeps on getting questioned, is he going to move to heavyweight? Is he going to move to heavyweight? So now he's going to move to heavyweight. But once he does his business in heavyweight, gets a couple fights, maybe fights for a championship, then he can come back to the light heavyweight division after they've all fought each other and when it all mixes up and all that kind of stuff. And it becomes a lot more interesting because I don't know if you agree with me. It was getting a really stagnant at one point, because look at this. Blachowicz is the first UFC light heavyweight champion other than John Jones and DC in 2011. So that's, so since 2011. So that shows you the dominance that John Jones had. And so I think this is a great move for John Jones. It's a way for the division to get mixed up. Man, look at it. People weren't talking about it as much, but the light heavyweight division is going to be something special. We got guys coming up that are crazy. Now, who would you think is next for Blachowicz? There's a couple fighters that called him out automatically. Johnny Walker comes out, says that I want the winner of that. I don't think that's the fight for Blachowicz that's next. But I see, and just by looking down his record, he got beat by Santos. Santos knocked him out viciously, got him with some ground and pound, and a TKO in the third. Who do you think is next for Blachowicz? And by the way, Santos is actually going to be fighting Teixeira, and unfortunately that had something to do with COVID. So I think the winner of the Teixeira and Santos fight should be next. But what do you think?
Looking at Jan's capability, his technicality, everything about him, he needs another high caliber fighter, right? Regardless of who that is. I can see a Reyes rematch happening down the road. Maybe not right away, right? Because he went down pretty hard, but I can definitely see him coming back. We have that option. We obviously have Jones, like we talked about. But again, whoever he fights needs to be high caliber, calculated, just like Reyes, right?
Yeah, I think Dominic Reyes and John Blachowicz was a great fight, and it was a great way to figure out who the next light heavyweight champion of the world is. So congratulations to John Blachowicz. Great fight. Amazing stuff. Now let's get to the main event. And I know we've been wanting to talk about this for a very long time. Man, tell me about the anticipation that was going into this fight. What did you think while going into it?
Well, you know what? Here's the thing. Okay, going into, I'm a big fan of both Costa, Adesanya. I'm a big fan of both of them. Right, I love them both for exactly who they are. Right. So, for example, Costa. Right. The reason I like Costa is because usually he picks and chooses his movements. Right. He chooses when to explode. He has a lot of second round TKOs. He has Johnny Hendricks second round, Hall second round, Yoel decision, right? So my thing was that if he connected with Adesanya, it's like a whole powerhouse coming at you, right? Usually Costa, he always marches forward. He never backs down, right? Same thing with Adesanya. I really like Adesanya because he's got that reach advantage. He brings something else to the game, right? When you look at Adesanya, he brings something totally different, and he's done a lot in the short amount of time that he's been in, right?
Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head right there. Paulo Costa coming in to all of his fights, marching people down. Who marches down Yoel Romero? That's crazy. We haven't seen something like that in a very long time. I don't think we've ever seen anybody do it to Yoel Romero. But the way that Costa was coming down and smacking people and getting all those TKO finishes, I know the UFC and everybody was saying how much of a knockout artist he is. I don't really agree with that, and that goes with the sentiment with a lot of people. I don't agree that he's a knockout artist. I think he hits you with a lot of punches and really gets you confused and then hit you with that devastating ground and pound. But the cardio levels that he was showing was crazy. And I think another thing that I wanted to talk about, and you're the perfect person to talk to about this, is the fact is at the weigh-ins or at the stare downs, these guys were throwing belts at each other saying, I got a black belt, you're going to have a white belt. It seemed like Paulo Costa wanted a ground match. Do you think that was some sort of trickery? Do you think that was the original game plan? Or this is just Adesanya doing what Adesanya does best?
I honestly think that was just like another mind game. It was part of it. I don't think I don't think Costa had any plans of taking it to the ground. We saw a couple of times, he kind of tried, but what I think they clinched. How many times did they clinch? I don't remember exactly. What was it? I think it was
Yeah,
once or twice, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think they clinched a couple times, but Adesanya was so evasive when it comes
He
to
was
this fight.
Yeah, listen. Adesanya was clearly picking his shots. He was picking Costa apart. He knew exactly what he was getting into, and Costa just got outclassed by him. That's literally exactly what happened. He got outclassed.
Yeah, and the game plan, and we talked about this at the beginning of the podcast, the game plan that was executed by Adesanya and his head coach, Eugene, was a great, amazing game plan. You got a guy that we just talked about that plots forward and hits you with amazing shots, hits you with body shots, hits you with headshots, and underrated kicks. Now, you got a guy like that uses his footwork to get at you. And so then what did they say? They said that we're going to kick you to the legs. We're going to take away that movement, and we're going to take away what makes you special and get you in the second round. Wasn't that a crazy game plan?
And I was honestly awesome. We were clearly able to see that Adesanya was getting those leg kicks in, right? He was getting them in early. He was repeatedly, he was getting them in. And they clearly, again, they made an imprint. Just like Jan made an imprint on Reyes's rib cage, that's exactly what Adesanya did to Costa, right by his knees and his calf. Right, we were clearly able to see over the rounds, first round, second round, there's a major difference in terms of color. And we were able to see how Costa had the cupping imprints on his calves from before. Yeah,
that's a very good point, because I saw the cupping as well. I don't know. Usually Costa does get the cupping work on his back. I saw it on his calves. That might be an injury. I know Paul Felder brought it up. He brought up the fact that it could be an old injury, and Adesanya could have made that game plan in that moment. But spectacular work. The way that Adesanya was able to move around and evade all of Paulo Costa's shots. Whenever he felt like he was trapped in a corner, Adesanya was able to freely get out. It was amazing masterclass, and it shows you the amount of striking that he's done in the past. Now he's only had a few fights in the UFC. He's still never lost a fight, but the amount of fights that he's had in his kickboxing career, that's showing to be such an asset in the UFC. Isn't that crazy?
I fully agree with what you're saying. Look, Adesanya is the essence of fighting, right? He clearly beats all the stereotypes of bigger, bulkier fighters usually winning, right? Usually when you have a lot of new fight fans coming to the UFC, they see a bigger, bulkier person, Yoel, Costa. You see them, and you're like, you know what? I'm going for that guy. He's bigger. The second he hits him, the other guy's going to go down. But Izzy is, he honestly connects to the essence of the fight game, right? He has an old school manner that he brings to the table, and that gives him a different type of edge.
Now, this is one thing that I really wanted to bring up, and I wanted to talk to you about, was we talked about the volume striking that Costa has. Throws a lot of strikes. The cardio never abandons him. But in this fight, the total strikes was 55 by Adesanya and 12 by Costa. This fight went 2 rounds. That's unbelievable. And it shows you the effectiveness of those leg kicks. Now, out of those 55 shots that Adesanya hit Costa with, and he targeted the head 24%, and he targeted the legs 26%. Now, that's it's crazy. Sorry, I got those numbers wrong. It was 24 shots to the head, which equals to 44%, and then 47% was to the legs, which equals 26 shots. So, I mean, you can see that it was just legs, head, legs, head, legs, head, back and forth. And the amount of volume that Adesanya was able to achieve and to nullify Paulo Costa. Now, if we look at Paulo Costa's shots, 17% of his shots were to the head, 58% was to the body, and 25% was to the legs. Man, it was crazy to see how Adesanya really put the brakes on Costa.
I don't know if it's the fact that Costa was able to play put on a nice poker face, or if those leg kicks really got to him. Because I wasn't able to tell, but by just looking at those leg kicks, they didn't look nice. They didn't look nice at all, and I feel like that's what kind of slowed him down. And what was funny to me was, I think it was the end of the first round, you could see Adesanya and Costa both point to the ground as well, right? And they were talking about Yoel. Costa was like, "I'm not no Yoel," right? That was really funny. It was nice. It was nice in between the fight.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like it's happening to Adesanya in every single fight that he's in, where he's getting a guy that's just talking smack to him. It happened in the Silva fight. It happened in the Yoel Romero fight. But, man, to be able to be mentally strong enough to have a guy put his hands behind his back and you don't jump right at him. Because what Costa was trying to do was have Adesanya come in and leave himself wide open. But Adesanya knew this. He knew that Costa was trying to bait him in because he didn't have his legs anymore. Adesanya took out his legs.
That's the thing. Israel was he was very efficient. He was using his lead leg, and that obviously again affected Costa very heavily. And you know what? Again, I can't emphasize this enough, but Izzy just brings something else to the fight game. He reads his opponents. He's calculated with everything he does, every movement, right? The entire duration of the fight, each millisecond, Israel is just efficient.
Yeah, that's totally true. And it shows you the complexities that Adesanya has, because he was able to, some of the shots that Costa was throwing, he threw some leg kicks, he threw some high kicks, and Adesanya was just evading them like the Matrix. It was crazy, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, crazy fight, crazy card overall. Is there anything else you would like to bring up?
Honestly, the one thing I really want to say is it's really nice that the UFC is putting in effort to prepare all this for everyone. You could see that, right now during times like this, these are trying times for a lot of people, and the UFC has been a very, very nice getaway for a lot of fight fans around the entire world. And, it's just awesome to see people are still keeping up. And yeah.
No, I totally agree with those points. Those are points that, I've talked about in the past, and it's great. And I totally agree with what you're saying. The fact that the UFC is one of those places that you can go to on a Saturday night and see something special like this, see someone become one of the greatest of all time in their sport, is something amazing. It's something that we'll be able to tell our kids about. I talk to people about Muhammad Ali. I talk to people about Mike Tyson. I talk to people about all these crazy fights, and we're witnessing something great. Adesanya is slowly creeping up on Anderson Silva when it comes to being the best in this division. We're seeing something special here. And at this time, in this time of our lives, is very tough out there for a lot of people. And the UFC and MMA in general is an amazing escape for us. And I think you would agree, and I agree with this as well, is that what they're doing is nothing short of spectacular. What's
That's for
happening these
sure.
days, what's happening these days when it comes to the UFC, and I don't know if you want to talk about this, but what do you think about them moving everything to Abu Dhabi and working with people out there? The way that
You know,
they've shown, or the way that they've done this is crazy.
I agree with that because that just goes to show, especially Dana White. No matter what comes in his way, he's willing to put on a nice night, a nice card for everyone around the world, and it goes to show because he's all the way in Abu Dhabi. It goes to show, right? He's putting in the effort and he actually cares.
Yeah, and kudos to Adesanya, kudos to Costa for taking the fight. Great fight overall. Kudos to everybody on the card. Amazing fight. People are going nuts over it. I wouldn't be surprised if this fight shoots Adesanya to the stars. This is the best time to watch a fighter, is when they're building up. When Conor McGregor was building himself up, when he fought Chad Mendes, when he fought all of these fighters, when he got the double belt, that was the best time to watch. Wouldn't you agree? This is the best time to watch Adesanya grow as a fighter.
For sure, especially with all this downtime, we got a lot of time to analyze these different type of fighters.
Yeah, and he's so active. It's great for the division. The middleweight division is one of the toughest out there. We got killers in there. Great night of fights. Just like to say thank you for listening. Thank you for taking the time and listening to this podcast. I know I really appreciate it, Maz. I know you really appreciate it as well. Maz, I just wanted to say thank you so much for spending this time with me and talking about these fights. It's 2:33 a.m., so we got to get to bed at some point, but we love talking about this stuff. That's why we'll stay up and we'll talk about it. If you guys could please subscribe, 5 stars on all the different platforms, I'd really appreciate it. Maz, if you would like to sign off on your end.
I just want to say it was very nice joining the Body Punch podcast, and I hope to be back sometime down the road. It was awesome. It was really fun, and yeah.
For sure, we'll have you back at any time. Super fun to go back and forth with someone as knowledgeable as yourself when it comes to these fights. Thank you again. Thank you guys for taking the time. Thank you for listening. It really means a lot for taking the time out of your day and listening to us talk about fights. So really appreciate it. This has been the Body Punch podcast. My name is Naz and I'm with Maz, and we just want to say bye.